All right. Welcome. It's early still. Is everyone hungover? I'm not. So this is going to be formula for a bug bounty program. Before we get started, everything discussed here is based on our experiences over the past 6 years, past 12 months. There's a few forward-looking statements that I might make. That's not a binding contract that we're going to do something in our program, but really just things we're thinking about. So the future remains malleable. So I'm here to talk about bug bounty in general, but also specifically what it is at Verizon Media. If you don't know, Verizon Media is now one of the 3 pillars of Verizon: business, consumer, media. Media covers brands and advertising, formerly known as Oath or Verizon AOL, if you go back in time. So what is bug bounty in general and specifically at our company? And then jump into some tips on building a great program. And I'll sprinkle in some lessons from the past 6 years, but also some particular stories from the past 12 months when I joined the team, which was our biggest year yet. Our security team at Verizon Media is called the Paranoids because we are paranoid. A little bit here, a little bit there. We have over 175 members on our team, covering all sorts of functions: red team, blue team, the product security and assurance. We've got architects. We've got GRC. We do all the things. We strive to do all the things. But our mission is to protect our consumers, customers, and corporate data. We fight for our users in everything that we do. So I'm Chris. I like to take things apart and sometimes put them back together if I'm able to. Mostly I just like to learn how things work, what makes them tick. I've been working in application and product security for 9 years now, and when I took my first position, I really had zero experience in security. Throughout my entire life, I worked with computers everywhere I could, build them, break them, program them, and mix that with propensity to learn how do things work, and I became a software engineer. My intro to security, though, was a single elective in college, followed by a friend who pointed me to the OWASP wiki pages back in 2011, and a nearly failed interview later, here I am. Right? That's just how things happen. But I like to tell people security is a mindset more than a skill set. It's a different way of thinking about the same kind of problems. So it's pretty easy. It was easy for me to make a transition from engineering to security, and a lot of people kind of see that as well. So we regularly look for people from the engineering side of the house that we can pull over to the security team if they start to show that security-mindedness, or if we can train them to be security-minded. If you're a good builder, you could be a good breaker. Now, though, the bug bounty team and I operate one of the world's largest and most successful bug bounty programs. Our team actually dropped to 0 staff at one point last year, and then we picked back up to 5. But we're settled in now around 4. And throughout 2018, we participated in 4 different live hacking events, and I'll get to kind of what those are later. But we had those spread all around the world. 2 of them we actually worked with our vendor HackerOne to custom design the event structure, to test some theories, innovate on the format and what is live hacking, what does it need to be, what could it be? Can we get more out of it? Can we produce more value and a more engaging experience rather than just bringing people into a room and throwing some money at them? Our program began paying out bounties in 2013, and last year alone, we paid out more than $5 million. Side note, but super critical, if you take one thing away from this, it should be that the amount of money spent is not a measure of success or failure. It's not a measure of security or insecurity. It's just how much money you spend. You can arbitrarily increase or decrease that, and it will produce all sorts of things, but money spent is not a measure of success. I constantly have to tell people that because that's one of those big things that we see, that we hear about, is money spent, really expensive bugs, $250,000 for an iPhone jailbreak, if it exists, right? Programs that will maybe just, like, I don't want to name some of the other ones, but there's groups out there that just buy 0 days, right? That's money spent, but it's Does it prove that the product is secure or not? Not really, right? We all know that vulnerabilities exist everywhere. Last year, we actually restructured our process and the amount of money that we offer in bounties, and expanded the number of products and brands that were in our program, right? As we're working through the reorganization of merging all of our companies together under Verizon, we had a lot more to offer into our bug bounty program. So we grew like exponentially, or multiple exponents maybe even. But the point is, the dollar amount is more of a function of the energy and attention that we were able to invest into the program. So last year we had nearly 2,000 reports spread across those $5 million that we accepted and fixed. We had many more that like come in, but there's duplicates, there's garbage, there's all sorts of things. But nearly 2,000 were valid and good reports that we fixed, which is awesome. That's 2,000 bugs that don't exist anymore. But that doesn't get into the previous 1,200 business days, which we're not publishing numbers for. So it's just the 2018 number. On average, it takes us 25 days to take a report in, fix it, test it, deploy it, and pay a researcher. So the whole life cycle from researchers submit something to getting paid, which is we put at the end of our plan, is 25 days, which is not the fastest, but it's pretty great. If you consider that there's really no industry standard for responsible vulnerability disclosure programs and how fast the turnaround is on those, but generally people expect 60 days, and we pay them in 25. So we're beating that expectation, and we tend to be consistent with this. So sometimes it comes down to 3 days, sometimes it's 62 days, but on average we're doing great, and our hackers seem to think so too. Over the lifespan of our program, we had over actually that number's not right. I'll fix that in a minute. We'll get that in a minute. Over 3,000 researchers, nearly 4,000 actually, from over 60 countries have participated in our program, have submitted reports to us, literally all over the world. But that number is really hard to understand without some perspective about what related to what, right? How many people are out there? I don't have the data for other platforms, but I'll use some data from HackerOne because we're partnered with them, and they frankly did the research. They produce a report, I think annually, about the state of bug bounty, which came out a couple months ago, if you want to look it up. And they said they found that on their platform they have 300,000 people that are registered. 300,000 hacker accounts exist on their platform. Of those, 10% have ever actually submitted a bug. Not great, right? 10% participation, okay. Of those 10%, only a quarter, 1 in 4, have ever gotten paid. So 2.5% of the overall. Okay, so that's some baseline numbers across the platform. How do we compare that to our program? Well, we've seen 3,900, nearly 4,000 researchers in our program over the past 6 years. And of those, we've paid 800, I think it's over 850, which means that 1 in 5 of the people in our program have ever gotten paid. So we're a little lower than the standard platform average. But that also means that 13% of the people that participate in bug bounty have worked with us, have worked for us. And 11% of the people that have been paid by us. So if you consider that we are one program, and there's hundreds and hundreds of other programs out there, we're a pretty large chunk of it, right? And we do all of that with a team of 3 people. We just signed somebody for our 4th, but he'll be starting in a few weeks. So maybe we'll have more on that later at another conference. Sean Porras is our Director of Product Security and Assurance. Product Security is our team that partners with product development teams to build security into everything. We work on left shifting all of the security activities and going deeper into the development side rather than just break it at the end. Mark Litchfield, if you're familiar with bug bounty, you probably recognize his name. He's been a longtime researcher in the world of bug bounty, formerly one of actually our top hackers. He I think won some of our events in the past, and he still probably holds one of our top 5 slots. But he joined our team last year to help with running the program, and it's been fantastic to work with him. And then, of course, we're supported by all of the other Paranoid teams. Incident response, which we call fire, because everything's on fire, right? All sorts of teams. And if you want to hear more about the Paranoids, we've got a table outside, and the red team is running a CTF village. With I think the hardware is open source now, which is pretty cool. Yeah, it is. That actually one of our team members designed, so that's pretty cool. There's some really interesting bugs that they've developed into the hardware, so I recommend checking that out. So that's some numbers, but what is bug bounty? How do you get to what's the core of a successful program? We have to define what bug bounty is. It means different things to different sides of the space, right? It means a different thing to a program than it does to a hacker or to the platform that brings those things together. We're going to look at it from the program perspective because that's where we sit. So we can take it down in just the words, right? The name, bug bounty, bug in terms of software is something that's not working the way it should, right? And bounty is a reward paid for a specific result. Okay, but there's teams that do this kind of thing, teams that find bugs in software. This is a generic structure. There's a whole bunch of functions that a security organization might have that report up to your CISO. Your engineering is going to be separate than that, most likely. So where do these things exist? Well, bug bounty could fit in a lot of places. Researchers are a testing resource, and they really simulate being attacked by an adversary and then produce test cases. That's kind of like what the red team does. It's kind of like what application security does. Internal pen tests, external pen tests, with some elevated knowledge in some cases. There's information gathering, whether you go directly to the product team or you're doing, OSINT. So we could say it's just a pen test, right? You get a report, and there's particular work that happens. You know what happens on the schedule. You can work around that. It's going to cost whatever it costs. Staff is cheaper than going outsource, but you get what you pay for. If you want to pay a lot, you can get better quality, right? Cost and quality are going to vary by who you've hired. But it's also very much not a pen test, because the people participating in the program are not employees. They're not contractors even. So you really can't count on being able to control anything that they do. So the rules of engagement, good luck, right? You can set a program policy, you can set rules, but they're not contracted to you in any means. They're going to do whatever they're going to do, and you have to deal with the outcome of that. When they send in reports, it could be an amazing 17-page threat model with 0 days and flaws in architecture and amazingness. Or it could just be a single payload and nothing. Whiteness. Just blank screen. It can happen any time of the day, and it is happening all of the time because people are around the world. We've got hackers literally around the world. So we're always being hit by these guys. And it can cost literally anything. You could have a program that spends no money because you manage your software internally, you manage tickets and everything, you pay out directly, however you're going to do that. Send gift cards out maybe, or swag. And who knows? Maybe you want to pay $400,000 for a single bug. One bug a year. Best bug gets the pot. Right? The cost is really what you have available and what are the incentives you want to set. And the quality is going to vary by the individual, not the company that you're hiring, because these are individual people. They don't work for a group in most cases. So it's a pen test, but also very much not a pen test. So what do we call it? Usually we just call it a pen test, even though it's really not. But the reality lies somewhere between the two, And exactly where is really a direct function of the program that you build, and every single person in the security organization and the development organizations, security and development, that work together to support the bug bounty program. Because it can impact everything in the company if you want it to. So researchers might identify flaws in the design of a system that needs to get re-architected. So the architects get work. It could prove a security control doesn't work as intended, and policy needs to change. So your GRC group has work to do. They act kind of like a red team. Sometimes without a schedule, limited rules of engagement, if any, depending on how the team works. They break things and act without the knowledge of the general security team or the development organization. They could also work on a schedule. They can be exactly what you need them to be. Point the researchers at a thing, and they will go hunt that down. You can plan events, and we know there's going to be people hacking on this thing at this time, right? We can set a schedule. And when they produce reports, we can take those and hand them to development and say, here's the thing you need to fix. Here's how we reproduce it. We know that it exists. Let's fix it together. Right? There's a direct thing that can be handed over. Or maybe they're just setting off alerts all over the network. And the teams that monitor the network are seeing these things, and we can alert on them and protect against that. Statically, dynamically, responsive or not. So they attack the system as a whole. They cause work for everybody. Everybody in security, everybody in development. So you have to respond as a whole. And since the bugs can impact everybody, we need to get everybody involved. Our team has 3 major pieces to our program right now. Business as usual, the bug bounty lifecycle, and live hacking events. So business as usual is just the general idea of researchers are the ones doing the work. I kind of got into I mix up the word researchers and hackers, but they're the same group of people. So it's just, I don't know. Sometimes there's a positive or negative connotation to one word or the other. Try and be consistent, but they know what they are. They know what they are. But they're the ones finding bugs. They write something that resembles a report, and they send it in to us. And we have some of the best researchers in the world. One of our guys who focuses on a particular type of bug, he's, I would say, the best at that kind of bug because of the success he's shown. He uses bug bounty actually to fund 3 and probably by this point maybe 4. He's probably started another one. Different businesses that he and his wife run. So he does hacking on the side to support all the other business ventures that he has. That's pretty cool. We've got 1 or 2 pairs of people that do pen testing to develop tools and OSINT and like actual AppSec tools that they prototype while they're doing hacking, and then we'll hand those off and sell them to companies and other bug bounty hunters to keep making more money off of that, right? But we've got people developing 0 days in software. We've got people actually doing threat models against our stuff. We've got people finding cross-site scripting payloads that just execute. Like it's all over the place. So they find a bug and they write a report. They send it in. HackerOne is our vendor that we use right now. They're our platform for ticket management and payment processing. We also use their managed service for initial triage of reports. So when a report comes in, they look at it, see if they can reproduce the steps, add any missing details. So the end result that they actually pass to us is a nice, clean, quality report. Saves us a ton of time. And they're a fantastic team. If we need a new feature in the platform, they put it on the backlog and they'll start working on it. If we need help getting data or building reports, they jump right in and find that data for us whenever we can't, if we don't have access to finding it. When we want to run an event or cause a burst in reports because we're going to do something, like point people in a direction, the triage team is the first group that we notify so that they can handle that surge of activity. And we've strained them in the past year. Once a bug's been triaged, it comes to us, the paranoids, bug bounty team on the paranoids. We go through the process of deciding who needs to get involved in this bug. It's usually just the developers, but maybe it's incident response. Maybe we need to go ask the legal or privacy team, how do you classify this data, right? If something, we're looking at a string of data that came out of a bug, should that be more protected? Is it okay where it's at, even though the bug that exists needs to get fixed? So we got to decide if we need to build more engagement with that product. So then we'll figure out who needs to get involved, get those people involved. Usually it's just the developers. So developers are the ones that are going to fix it. We partner with them. We'll help design a fix. We'll test it with them. Sometimes we can even go to the point of actually identifying lines of code and specific fixes that might need doing, so we can save them some time. And wherever possible, we're happy to educate and train. And right, our goal is to left shift security, build it in. Right, if we're always just fixing point-in-time bugs, we're never really going to make progress. What our devs are the best. They're absolutely the most critical piece of the process. If we don't have support from them, if they're not engaged, we're not fixing anything, right? Security team, even though a lot of us come from an engineering background, we're not the developers. This is not our code. We can't just fix things. We don't know their pipeline. We can't necessarily deploy the fix, even if we could fix the code. So we need our developers involved. And with the hundreds and I don't know how many thousands of products that we have, different tech stacks that are all over the place, we have some of the best, I think, in the world. And because they're always excited to see us showing up. Like when we hand them bugs, they're always excited. Like, what's this new thing? Is this a new attack? Is this something different? What can I learn from that? Once a bug is fixed, our team will then go back through the runbook and we'll work on retesting it, determine how much, if any, award we're going to grant, and then distribute that through the platform back to the researcher. And if all went well, researcher comes back to us with new vulns down the road. Rinse, repeat. Simple. One job, hand it off to the next. Until we really decide that just kind of looks like outsourced pen testing, which it is, right? But it should be more than that. It can be more than that. And there's some groups in the space that are designing bug bounty to be outsourced pen testing. And that's kind of what you can pay for. You can pay for work. You can pay for effort. But it could really be a lot more than that on the inside. So the other thing that our team does is to take the software development cycle used to build software, and this is not ours, but just a generic process, right? You can apply that to anything, agile, waterfall, sprints and iterations, like whatever the process. It kind of looks like that. You got to design it, build it, test it, deploy it. But we can turn that backwards, and we call it the bug bounty lifecycle. It's the idea that when a report comes in, it doesn't have to be just a single bug. We can actually cascade the fix back up the chain and drive deeper, wider changes across tech. So we get a payload that executes in production, probably just a small fix. 1 or 2 lines of code. Maybe we add something to a blacklist or a whitelist. Push that out. Fixed. Done. Simple. 5 hours. 2 hours. 4 days. Instead, though, we maybe want to back that up by implementing a tool that we can scan for that fix, for that test case, or add a payload into an existing scanner that we can look for something. We can build a test case. Maybe we go back a little farther, we identify enough of those, and find out we can build a new library or implement some other library into a particular product that's being hit. So we can fix that issue across the whole code base, that product. We can go back a little farther to the architects to maybe build a new control or adjust a control that exists because it's not working the way that it was designed, or it's working the way it was designed but not being used the way that it was designed or intended. So maybe something's just missing. Okay. We can go back even farther maybe and take the lessons and write a new requirement, policy, standard, and then deploy that across the entire product organization. Fix that issue across everything. Right? Could be all off of a single report, and in some cases it is. More likely, though, it's off of a series of reports. We see someone attacking a product, and they attack this, and then that, and the next thing, and the next thing, and we've identified a chain of these are all related vulnerabilities, related attacks, and now they've developed enough knowledge about the application, they can take it to the next level, and they find the next thing, and then we need to really engage with different groups of the development organization. The last piece of our program right now is live hacking events. It's probably the most visible, honestly. So these events tend to take place over usually a few days, and the format's been changing because of some tests we've been running the past few months or so. But we have a bunch of researchers, a bunch of hackers come in to a particular place. We point them at a product or a feature or maybe a particular bug that we want to find and say, do it, hit it, find it, test that thing. And they will, right? It's a sharp tool that we can use to focus on a particular thing. And the hackers use it to build their community. So they love to come together and spend time with each other and see a new part of the world because we use it as an opportunity to travel sometimes. Sometimes they like to show off their skills and like prove to each other that you know, I'm better than you because I can find this bug and you can't. Right? Sometimes it's competition. But a lot of times they use it, the hackers use it, HackerOne uses it, and we as a program use it to train new hackers or recruit them into our security team. Some of, you know, Mark Litchfield was one of them that we recruited onto our team. Right? Other programs were constantly trying to do that because they've shown that they have that skill. They've shown the ability to, right, prove a vulnerability exists, and then depending on, you know, maybe a particular person is better at the fixing side of things. They write excellent reports and they're really engaged throughout the entire life cycle of a bug. So they provide all that extra value. So I got a couple of quotes from hackers from some of our live events. Was for sure one of the best days of my life. This was a guy that I'm not sure. I don't think he had actually been participating in bug bounty before the event that I met him at. But you know, one thing is for sure that everyone enjoys a really well-planned event. You know, the line I like here is, "I will be radically changing the way that I hack from now on." It's a powerful statement to hear from someone that, you know, we've interfaced with online, a few messages here and there, and now shaking hands at an event. We love to be part of these events as a program, and you know, particularly with HackerOne, our partner for these events, because you know, and the feedback we've received is just amazing. Like, we love it. Our vendor seems to love us showing up, and the hackers love it when we show up. All right, so that's what it is. But how can you take some of that success and emulate that or produce your own program out of it? Well, I call this talk a formula, but it's not really a formula. It's more a recipe. I tried to write a formula, and it just didn't make sense. It's more of a recipe because you have all these pieces that come together, and at different times you need to emphasize different parts of it to get different flavors out of it. But the whole thing doesn't work if you're missing any of them. So we've got community and integrity as some of the cornerstones. And, of course, money. More money, probably more success. Probably. But, remember I said earlier, money is not a measure of success. But to the hackers, it feels more successful when they get paid. So to start the program, we need to have a single core guiding principle. You might call it a goal, but I think of it more as a principle instead. Goals are something that can change over time as you evolve. It's something you can achieve. A principle, though, is a higher purpose. It's something you can ask yourself, does this decision lead me towards the principle, towards our core principle of the program? Am I making progress in the right direction? Right? The principle is that direction. So ours was and still is, we fight for our users. Right? We are paranoids. We use our position on the internet to fight for those that need it. Maybe they can't fight for themselves. Maybe they just need help. Maybe they don't even know it. But we fight for our users. That's ours and really everyone's responsibility as companies on the internet, right? We have data, we should protect it. So maybe, that the goals, or our principle is going to manifest itself in different goals at different times. Now, maybe we want to set a goal to eradicate a single bug from our entire company, or identify the most dangerous bug in each product and fix those individually. Or maybe we just want to build a new technology and enable our users to protect their own data within our systems. Once a program has a direction, you need to get participants involved. Executive sponsorship is critical. We hear this time and time again, right? You can build grassroots, you can go from the bottom up, but if you have buy-in from the top down, everything is way more effective. We've been so successful because we actually have buy-in from our CEO all the way down, right? When we have our company meetings, he's always making comments about security is fantastic and they're doing this and he should be involved in that, and he's constantly supporting us, which is incredible. Obviously, you'll need the researchers who are the ones doing the work to find the bugs. They run tools against the network, fuzz inputs, test the web applications, hammer the APIs, generally just work to expose the surface, find the cracks, and pry them apart. But when the bugs start rolling in, what do you do with them? Are you fixing them yourselves? Do you hand them off to a separate product team? Whoever's responsible for fixing the bugs has to be willing to accept them from the program. They're the most important part, the development group. So community is hyper important. This is actually the end photo from one of our live hacking events. The guy in the front there actually won the event. He got the most valuable hackers. He's got a belt, right? That's always fun. So this event was in Argentina last year. We flew down, I think the events typically have around 50 people. And the breakdown for this one was a little different because we had someone who was starting a hacker meetup community in the area. And he reached out to HackerOne and said, hey, I'm trying to get this thing started, get this off the ground. Can you guys help support us? And they said, absolutely. How do you feel about bringing a live event down to Argentina? So the breakdown for the event, instead of being 25 researchers and their plus ones, it became 25 researchers and 15 from the local community that was being started. And then working with us, we went to HackerOne and said, hey, let's do another thing. Let's add a CTF in, because these events are typically tied around hacker conferences. So this was at Echo Party in Buenos Aires. So HackerOne built a little CTF that they ran at the conference, and the people that won got an invite to the event. Right? We can grow the community. It's a pretty interesting thing. It was an incentive to participate in the challenge. It was kind of a weird CTF, but everyone had fun. And we got great bugs from all three of the groups that showed up. A lot of them were actually new to hacking in general. Like they come from a pen test background or an engineering background or whatever the case, but they've never really done web application hacking, or most of them had never done bug bounty hunting. And yet we still found a lot of success. This is actually the guy. That's the best picture I could get of him. But this was captured. We were having a really intense conversation around, I don't know what, but it was great because this was my first experience. This was 4 months after I learned bug bounty. Like, joined the program, started taking everything, started running it, And I knew all of these people as usernames. I never met any of them, right? They knew me as a username, as Flying Toasters. And when Flying Toasters shows up in the comments, it's either because he's handing out money, or he's going to tell you that, like, bad news, that the bug you sent in is not a critical bug, it's a medium or a low severity. And or it's bad news because we don't care about that. It's not that we don't care, it's like that's not an issue, or our team is like this. You really just uncovered a feature that's not a security problem, so thanks for playing, right? Or duplicates, yeah, right? That's the other thing. So money or bad news, right? And I knew all of them by their usernames. So some of them I am like super excited to read their reports because they put a lot of detail in it, and it's a really interesting bug, and it's like new research. I feel like I'm learning something when I read them. And some of them I dread because they're hard to read, or like I know that I'm going to have to give them bad news, or they just have a constant, they rate it so high and it's never that high, But these events bring everyone together and allow us to build those relationships together, so that now Ariel is not a username; he's a person. Right? We use the internet so frequently that it's hard sometimes to get back to that connection. That these are real people, and we're working to fight for our users, but so are they. Right? They're out there. They're working on our products because maybe they use our products. They care about our products. Some of them really just care about our users and don't use the products. That's fine, right? They're helping us. It's all moving towards the right direction. The next piece, and I'm not a behavioral psychologist, but I've noticed throughout my life that people live up to expectations that you set. So if you set high expectations, particularly for yourself, because it's the best you can do, you set a high bar for yourself and work to live up to that, people around you will see that. And they respect it, and eventually, hopefully, they start to reciprocate that. They hold you to high expectations. They help you get there. And if you circle yourself with those people, they also will begin to set high expectations for themselves. So this should go without saying, but I'll say it anyways because it's incredibly important in bug bounty, but in everything. Act with integrity always. Right? And again, act with integrity always. As a part of a bug bounty program, represent yourself, your team, your security organization, your company, your employee workforce to so many people and places. And that means that everything you do matters. Not just like, everything I do matters because I matter. But everything you do matters because it matters. Like, people see that. People are watching. It often manifests itself through integrity. Integrity manifests itself through honesty. So a simple, common example that I can think of is, like, the hackers are going to ask, can you tell me more about this? I want to know details about this thing. Can you help me devise an ID for this function so that I can bypass brute forcing and IDs? Can you tell me what happened in that last feature update? Can you give me the code? Can you give me the zone files? And we find ourselves in a situation where we're not able or not allowed or just shouldn't answer those questions. So we could say no, or make something up or lie, but really I would say the right way to answer that is, I can't answer that because it's confidential information. Period. Fact. End of statement. Let's move on, right? They push the bounds. They're natural red teamers, right? Even though they may not think about it that way. They're trying to social engineer at every opportunity, intentionally or not. So as the program, we have to be defensive and firm. So we do our best to make decisions that are fair and line up with the program principle. And our experience has largely been that really no one who participates in bug bounty programs acts with malice. So these are a couple of comments I've got here that were logged in the bug bounty reports. These come from hackers, and it's, you know, an auditable history. Comments from the hackers, comments from our team members, comments. But, you know, was the last comment helpful? Can I help in any other way? Absolutely. There's always more you can do, right? But they ask, they care. They may act with disregard, but you can preempt a lot of that with the relationships. Usually, it's just mistakes that happen. It's not malice. It's just, whoops. Researchers participate for all sorts of reasons. For money and fame, the thrill of the hunt, and sometimes just because they care about our products or consumers and truly want to make our stuff more secure. And along the way, bad things might happen. Well, strike that actually. Bad things will happen. A trusting community around the program will help you get past those instances, because when we act with integrity, the people we work with feel obligated to do the same. So this was a situation, actually let me jump back, because this is another fun story. This one, our one of our monitoring teams, called us up in the middle of the night and said, something's going on, we need help. And it turns out we just had a hacker who was running his tools, and it was causing some chaos. So we tracked it down, figured out who it was, sent him a message and said, hey, I need you to stop right now. This is causing some trouble. What are you doing? Right? Submit us a report with the details of what you were doing, what you were going for, what did you find, and just like stop until we tell you to go, right? So he sent in the report, and he followed it up with this comment that was, you know, sorry, I didn't mean to cause any damage, like, happy to help with whatever I can. I'm not going to touch that thing again until you tell me to, right? And they do that because we've built that relationship. There's other instances where we don't have that relationship in place, and they just burn the whole thing down. Keep going until it breaks, and then we get a report. And now we have a whole mess to deal with, rather than we can stop it as it's happening. This one was a little different. It was, he actually identified the issue, like found a problem, and then identified a way that it could be escalated. And instead of going and doing that, which is against our rules, right? We look at that as pivoting, leveraging one vulnerability to test and find others. He stopped, sent us a report for what he had, and included a whole little mini report about here's what I think could happen if these conditions hold, but I'm not going to do that because it violates the rules and. So, you know, we worked with him and said, thanks for stopping. Like, we appreciate that you're staying within the rules and communicating with us. You know, maybe we actually do want to work together and let him go test this and set up a particular individual pen test kind of self-contained experience. Maybe we want to just say, no, stop, that's done. Maybe the application was planning on being EOL'd in 4 weeks, and it's not really worth his time or our effort. So thanks, but move on, right? But without that, without stopping and thinking about that and respecting the relationship, it's just another burned system. And it's a bad experience, and now we have someone who's broken our rules. And trust is one of the most important currencies that we have with our researchers, with our developers, and obviously with the executives, right? Researchers are going to follow the rules. Developers are going to be happy and engaged with us when we bring them reports, and the executives support everything that we do. Right? So trust is important with everybody. This is like one of the quintessential trust statements, built in drops and lost in buckets. It takes a long time. It's every comment, every payout, every interaction, every phone call, every meeting, every email that slowly adds that trust when we act with visible repetition, that we're following our guiding principle, that we're moving in the right direction. with our researchers. Sorry. So to act with consistency requires some documentation, and you might argue that documentation should come first. I don't think it needs to. It should. It probably should, but it doesn't really have to. You could operate with everything entirely inside the heads of your team members, and that probably won't be consistent for very long unless you're some sort of super intelligent, hive-minded being. But I suppose it is possible. But no, you really probably quickly realize that it's useful to write down the important things. How do you accept bug submissions? Do you notify anybody besides the development team when a bug comes in? Who? When? Is there a special process for handing bugs to developers? Is it different for different teams? Are there rules that the researchers need to follow? What happens if the rules get broken? What information do you need to request from the researchers? Does your team add anything else to that information? When do you qualify a bug as fixed? How do you track all the reports that come in? Are you awarding researchers? How do you determine what they receive? Probably going to need some money to get the ball rolling, especially if you decide to award researchers. Back in the day, we actually, AOL had a program that worked the way many others did at the time, which was, thanks for submitting, we'll put your username on a Hall of Fame webpage. And that worked at the time enough. But to stay competitive, you really have to keep the attention of the best researchers out there. So that's going to cost some money. If you want to use a vendor or platform or services, that's going to cost. If you have dedicated resources to operate the program, staff members aren't free. Maybe you want to mail out t-shirts, cotton, ink, stamps. That's going to set you back a bit, especially over time. And I actually recommend setting bounties for particular bugs that you want to see reported. There's kind of the twist on the Field of Dreams adage in the world of bug bounties, which if you pay them, they will succeed. Right? If you point them in a direction and offer money, they will find that thing. This was some swag that we had at a recent event. The little buttons. Find me later, I can show it to you. But little button that like Bluetooth to your phone, and you can change anything that's on it. They were a ton of fun. People were actually bartering with those at RSA to like get invites to things. It was really amusing. Our second year at H1415, which is HackerOne names their events based on the area code that the event's happening in, so 415. So this is San Francisco. A couple months ago. We offered a massive bonus for a particular bug. We were bringing a product to the event, and along with that product, we brought, we wanted to test some of our security controls that we had, and we said, if you can find this particular bug, we will offer a $50,000 bonus. We're not going to say that we're not going to prescribe what the bug is, but we're going to say, if you get this result, whatever bug came with it, plus 50 grand. So this was a $7,000 bug with a $50,000 bonus, and we had over 30 people working on it, and in the end, two guys who had partnered up ended up solving it and won the bonus. But really, it's our program that won. Our consumers, our customers, are more secure because they all worked and they worked together to find that bug. The format's actually already been copied a few times, and I expect it will continue because it really drove, it was a massive incentive, and it drove engagement down a particular path. But in general, we define a bounty table that says we will pay $100 to $500 for low severity bugs, $15,000 for critical bugs, and all the rest in between. You can be more specific. Some programs are. We actually we have another table that matches this, that lists payouts, or it lists severity ranges for particular bugs. And there's a mix of outcomes and vulnerabilities and exploits and things. But we list the severity with the vulnerability. So you can kind of track that back and say, all right, well, remote code execution is critical. Critical is 10 to 15, so remote code execution is 10 to 15, right? And we actually have another column in this table that we don't publish that says, standardly, right? In general, we will pay X amount of dollars for each of these bug types. We don't publish that, though, because that would then hold us to an accountability standard. If we say we're always going to pay this amount for this bug, then whenever we deviate from that, we end up with an argument, right? We're breaking trust with our researchers because we're now violating that contract that we've said. But so not publishing it gives it a little bit of flexibility, because maybe the same bug in a different product is not as bad, right? The product is not as meaningful in some cases, or the impact of that bug in the other product is not as valuable. There's maybe no data in a marketing site, so SQL injection just allows you to change the content. You're not pulling any data out of there, any meaningful data that's not publicly available already. Maybe we want to offer bonuses, and we regularly do for quality reports, like really well-written content, or unique research that's happening. There's all sorts of ways to play with that. So you want to be transparent about it, but not overly transparent. And the last piece is challenge your assumptions. We think live hacking has to be a certain format. Bring hackers out, point them at a thing, pay them, go home. But it doesn't have to be just that. It can be a lot more. We ran an event in New York. We, the royal we, our vendor and us, HackerOne. Our event in New York, we ran some statistics on our program, identified the statistically most valuable hackers, like people that have received the most money, people that have received the most average money per report, most reports submitted, most highest severity reports. Mash all those things up, and we can create a statistic of these are our most impactful hackers. Bring them to an event, and we actually put them on teams this time, which had not really been done before. It's been tried out here and there. Hackers were allowed to form teams to work together, but in this instance, we actually put everyone on teams. So we had 8 teams of 4, 32 hackers. Some of them were super excited. Some of them were like, I don't want to do teams. This is not going to be fun. And walking out, every single one of them said, this was amazing. This was a fun format. I learned from the team members. I learned from other teams. And it was just generally amazing feedback. We think that researchers aren't going to find bugs in products that have already been attacked for years. We actually had, in New York, we did a multi-day format. So normally, product shows up for a day, and there's some lead time, and then there's a day of hacking, and then people go home. But we actually did this as a multi-day format. So we had lead up to one day, and then at the end of the day, we said, okay, we're actually going to add some new stuff. We're going to add a new product that no one has ever touched before. Hack on that. We'll give you a day of recon instead of 2 weeks. And then we had a second day of hacking on day 3 of the event. And we got some amazing bugs. We got amazing bugs for the new product, but we also got amazing bugs for the other products, the stuff we brought to day 1, which had been around. Those things had been in our program, publicly available. They weren't behind invites. They were just out there for years and years. And everyone has this assumption that everybody's looked at it. I'm not going to find anything. That's not accurate. You will find something if you look. Right? You're never going to find it if you don't. But even if you've looked at it in the past, you've got new tools, you've got more skills, you've got different experiences now than you did in the past. Maybe you see something that looks exactly the same, but you recognize a different piece of it because of other experience you've had. Or you can partner with someone that you've met along the way and ask them, hey, I think this is weird. What do you see? So we have all these assumptions and just keep testing them. And we get some incredible changes out of it. So to wrap up, talked a bit about how a bug bounty program should be used to fill gaps. It's not a replacement for anything. And if you're going to start a program or evolve an existing program, make sure you've got a well-defined principle at the core. We fight for our users. You sort of all know what kind of goes into making a good program, but you need to find the right amounts of each piece to really make your program successful in the way that you want it. and invest in the community that supports your program. And I'll say it again, act with integrity, always. And then, keep trying to move forwards. Bug bounty right now is, it feels extremely volatile. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but that's my assessment of it, is the whole space feels like it's moving really fast. It's changing at a rapid pace. So, again, this is what we know at the time. Things might change in the future. And I just want to, while I have the stage, thank Jason Pubal and Jana Geddes. When I joined the bug bounty program just about a year ago, May 1st last year, I literally knew nothing. On the plane out there, from Virginia to California, I read Jason's white paper, and then I sat with Jana for 7 days. How does it work? And that was my experience. And now here we are, right, with some amazing stuff. Everything since then has been a series of trial and error, calculated trials and manageable errors. What? Oh, you want the white paper? Here. Yeah, so there's a whole bunch of reference stuff, some blog posts and things. White paper's in there, in the paste bin. Oh, the white paper. Yeah, it's called Bug Bounty Programs Enterprise Implementation. Oh, no, that's all right. Yeah, it's a pretty easy read. It's kind of a lot of the same stuff that I've been saying, but oh yeah. No worries. I don't know. Do we have time left? Not really. Okay. If you have questions, find me later. So, thanks.